So, good evening to you, and thank you for being on board. We're going to have a very interesting show ahead of us for about an hour. We'll be talking to my guest, who is quite a regular on the show and has been a regular on the show for quite some time. Obviously, we'll be talking about his work, and that's the whole point of the Lizzie Events Live. They are to introduce people to the guests and to the exhibitors of the shows and get a feel of the people who are exhibiting and people who are presenting. Our today's guest is well known amongst many of you, and without any more ado, I shall introduce Mr. Darren Stanton. How are you, Darren?
Good. How are you?
Very good, Darren.
Welcome
You'll
to
have
to.
Yeah. We'll be. Here's our Stuart. Look, good evening, Stuart.
Yeah,
how are you?
Mate.
Thank you for being on board. StreamYard have changed a few of their buttons, so if I make a few mistakes, forgive me all. It's just a learning curve that's going on here. So, Dee, have you had a busy day?
I want to know. Yeah, I've stopped. It's been a crazy one.
Good. So, Dee, two or three things we'll be talking about as we go on. I've been doing a lot of work on TikTok and other social media streams, so I anticipate there'll be one or two people having a look at this Lizzie Events Live. So, would you, even though quite a few people on here, would you introduce yourself and just a little bit of a brief synopsis about who you are and what you do, please?
Yeah, sure. So I'm Darren Stanton. I'm basically, I was a police officer for 20 years, not in Derbyshire. Left in 2010 to basically pursue a career in sort of television and media. So since 2010, I've worked sort of broadcast media, working on assessing the body language and behaviour of politicians, celebrities, public figures. So I assess shows like if you like The Traitors. I assess the sort of body language and interactions between the participants. Shows like Strictly, I'm a Celebrity, things like Love Island, and then also I'm in a show if people like crime. I'm in a show called Interrogation Secrets on the Crime Investigation Channel and Amazon Prime with Robert Rinder, and also Crime Stories, ITV Crime Stories as well. And I do stuff for companies, so I'll train companies on influence and persuasion, recruitment, because obviously a lot of people, believe it or not, they lie when they're applying for a job. So companies want to minimise the risk of hiring someone that's basically made a lot of stuff up. So our speciality is, I think, called deception detection, which is basically the psychology of lies.
I would imagine that you've had to do quite a few commentaries on a few politicians and statesmen over the last couple of weeks with what they're saying. I'm not going to go into the ins and outs of America or the Far East or what. I just don't want to go there this evening. But I imagine you have been quite busy with this observation. Yes.
Yeah, because I'm in a privileged position now. So I don't just write for the UK press; I write for press all over the world now. So. Yeah.
Do you find that your journalism, do you find it fulfilling, or do you prefer your stage work and your lecture tour? Which do you prefer out of them?
I'm being on stage every time, Ian. I mean, you and I both go back 25 years doing live shows. So there's nothing better than being, talking to people and seeing the whites of people's eyes, so to speak.
I know you used to thrive going out in the streets and being filmed doing
my Darren Brown bit. Yeah.
You did though, didn't you? You were very, very popular. Yeah. People were very, very interested in that work. I know, but the people watching don't know. How did you get into this aspect, this particular aspect of psychology? People should know when they're watching this that Darren is a very, very highly qualified man. He's qualified in psychology to degree standard. So a lot of the things that Darren talks about isn't just a construction of his own thoughts and ideas. A lot of it is based on very, very well-established psychological principles. So, Dee, how did you get into it?
Well, a lot of people know that really my first passion was music. So I played piano. Like I wanted to be a concert pianist when I was very early. Well, I was kind of forced into it by my mum. So when the rest of my friends were out playing football, I was sort of stuck in the house doing scales. And for those that play a musical instrument, you'll kind of resonate with that. But when I got to about 17, 18, I kind of wanted to do something a bit different. And I'd always been quite intuitive in terms of not psychic wise, but in terms of being an empath, and always kind of was curious about how people behaved and how different people saw things differently. So essentially, I did sort of psychology, sociology at A level, and I was quite an introverted person, not very confident back then when I was sort of like 18, 19. But I was, as a lot of people are, I was kind of given support by one particular teacher who believed in me, and ended up going to do sort of psychology at degree level, and then was going to be a prison psychologist, so did sort of forensic psychology at master's level, but didn't like it, so ended up going in the police. I spent a long time in the police, where obviously you're interviewing suspects on a daily basis, and majority of people that you interact with are trying to lie to you. So you gain a lot of information, and they call it a copper's nose. But again, it's not founded in science, whereas the stuff that I do now, it's a mishmash of stuff that I did at uni, it's experience in the police, and then also I'm sort of certified practitioner in something called micro expression training tool, which is all about facial muscles, statement analysis, which is something the FBI do. So somebody recently asked me about a couple of weeks back, I'm at uni, I want to do what you do, and like, how do I do it? And I was like, well, there is no career path. It's not like you're applying to be a lawyer or a doctor or a forensic psychologist. What I do really is I've created my own niche. But essentially, because from time to time I am challenged by various people in terms of what qualifies me to go on telly or whatever and say what I say. So, yeah, I might come over like I do it by the seat of my pants, but I have actually got, the qualifications to support it as well.
If you read a document, is there a way of looking at a document that somebody's written, and can you reference and can you get a guide to whether the document's truthful or not?
Well, aside from the body language, the kind of non-verbal stuff, there's a lot of stuff now that researchers discovered, again, which we call statement analysis. So, for example, the British police will take a statement from somebody, but the American police will tend to give you the blank piece of paper as a potential suspect and say, can you write down the account of where you were and what you did? Now, when someone's innocent, it'll be quite free flowing. But when you give someone the opportunity to do what we call free text, and just write their own account, there'll be certain things that come out. So what I mean by that is the way that people phrase things. So use of pronouns. So if you ask me and what I did today, I'd say, well, I did this, and then I went there. But if I was trying to create a situation and trying to hoodwink you, for example, I might say, unconsciously might say, well, yeah, we went there, then we went there, and then we did that. Well, who's the we? And this was something that Prince Andrew did, because I worked on the Prince Andrew interview for the press. And within that interview, there was about 180 red flags for deception in terms of statement, the way he said it, and the body language. So, there's a big myth that people can look in a certain direction. So what I'm really looking for in the context of deception is we first take the person's baseline. So right now I'm talking to you in a certain pitch. I'm giving you a certain degree of eye contact. I'm talking with my hands. But when someone's under stress of being discovered, so whether it's being caught cheating or committing an offence, because the person is so focused on getting away with it, they kind of just focus on what they say to you and not how they say it. So all of the things that they do normally, like I'm talking to you now with my hand, and the degree of eye contact, they go smaller, they diminish, but then the person just focuses verbally. So in those changes in emotion, you cannot not control them, or you cannot not communicate these things. So even if somebody's really well trained, like a politician, no matter who they are, they cannot not leak out this information, and we call it emotional leakage. Hi, Kirsty. How you doing?
Hi, Kirsty. Thanks for being on board. See you soon. Bring plenty of chocolate. I didn't say that. That just slipped out, Darren.
Freudian slip.
Oh dear. I shall regret that later. Dee, just come back to Mr. Mountbatten. Would if he been better have not? Hi, Lisa. Hope you're well.
Well, Lisa.
Would he have been better not to have sat on that television interview?
I'll answer that question through the medium of mime. He should have kept his mouth shut. He says that his PR people told him to do it, but it came out that he decided to do that. So I was interviewed about a week later by a German newspaper. You should Google it, you'll find it. There's a famous political magazine called The Spiegel.
Yes.
And they interviewed Mateless, who did the interview, and myself about the interview. And I can't say too much because I was told certain things in confidence, but let's just say it was a very interesting discussion I had. So yeah, there was really what we're looking for is an overwhelming cluster of behavior. So it's not like somebody does one particular thing with their eyes or a gesture. We're looking for a consistency of about 7 or 8 different behaviors on a topic. Because really what I'm looking for, Ian, is an emotional shift, really. So the best way to look at that is, they call it fight or flight. So, whether it's a physical fight or, an argument, what happens physiologically is that blood and adrenaline goes to our hands and it drains away from people's legs. And that's when people's legs shake. So it's to fight. Whereas likewise, if you want to get away from a threat, the blood and adrenaline goes to the legs. And it's not until later on that your hands start shaking because it's a dissipation of adrenaline. So it's a very physiological aspect to all this stuff. And so sometimes maybe you've been in a car, the people that are watching, maybe you've had to slam your brakes on because the person stopped suddenly. And that immediate shaking you get is the adrenaline that's kicked in. And we call that fight or flight. So long story short, people's lips will go very pale. And sometimes people might say, well, you look like you've seen a ghost because the blood has drained from the face in relation to an emotional shift. So it's the same emotional shift that people get when a situation called detection apprehension kicks in. So I'm not talking about, says to you, oh, do you like my new hairstyle? And you think they're wearing a syrup, that looks like a wig. Well, you're not going to say that, are you? You're going to say, oh, it looks great. But that's to avoid social awkwardness. But the lies, the big stuff is the stuff that's going to have a consequence, like losing your job, getting to prison, losing your relationship, losing respect, whatever. So the actual consequence of being caught out is proportionate to the degree of emotional leakage, if that makes sense. If you're on about Ian, and I say, oh, I nicked your cake, and you say, have you got my cake, Darren? I say, no, I haven't had it. I'm not going to leak anything out, even though you can read me, because there's no consequence.
So let's move on a little bit from that. So, I mean, to be fair, there's another thing that I'd like that also leads on to this as well. My personal perspective about Mr. Mountbatten is that I don't want to hear about it anymore. I've no interest in it. It's totally and absolutely exhausted. And people keep bringing in all of this, oh, let's have another million pictures and we're going to sift through all of this. It can't do anymore. It's all been done, hasn't it? And,
yeah.
But you start to look at it and there must be quite a few people like me who are just tired of it all. And you just become exhausted of it all.
Well, to be honest, I'm Meghan Markle, the same thing. It's just clickbait, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely, 100%. I mean, I also get a little bit frustrated when people say, oh, there's a war being made because that covers up what could have come out in the files. I mean, people, it's all the way that people think is a bit fragmented, isn't it? They don't seem to just look at the reality of it and just accept things for what they are. Why do you think people want to delve so deeply into other people's acts and how they live their life and the thing they say? Why do you think people are so interested in the thoughts and ideas of total strangers?
It's the same reason people get addicted to things like Coronation Street, EastEnders, because they can experience crisis without personal liability, And that's the same way why you get trolls. No one will come up to you or me and say, you know what? I don't like you, but they'll do it online,
Yes.
because they're anonymous. They'll let the venom seep out of their fingers, but they wouldn't come up to you in the street and say, "I don't like you, Ian," or "I don't like you, Darren."
Very interesting.
As you know, I've had a lot of abuse, and I accept that because I'm in the public eye, and that's the occupational hazard. It's like a soldier saying, "Oh, you shot at me." Well, you're a soldier, so I'm not going to cry too much about that. But to answer your question, it's the same reason people watch horror films. They can be exposed to crisis or to danger without any of the real risk to themselves. So it's looking at things from afar.
Excellent. So Darren is going to be this coming weekend at the original Mansfield Mind, Body and Spirit show, 11th and 12th, in case you don't know, at the John Fretwell Complex, Sookholm Road, Mansfield, Notts, NG19 8ALL. And Darren's going to be doing 2 talks, absolutely fascinating, and he will also be selling his book, and he will be talking to people one-to-one about his work, and you can ask him some questions and you can ask him some in-depth thoughts, and he'll give you some quite interesting answers. Here you go. Look, you should read Dark Art Body Language, learn to spot deception instantly, gain a psychological edge, practical for everyday life, protect yourself from manipulation. And he'll be selling that book, and his second reprint, I think, from the personal copies, which is fantastic. Kirsty's read it. Very, very interesting indeed. And you can talk to, and you can talk to Darren at the original Mind, Body and Spirit show. Very approachable, and the talks are spectacular. Let's have a look at the comments. Let's say evening all. Here's our Lisa. People love to know my life, even though I rarely leave the house. That's it. But you see, that's intrigue, isn't it, Dee? Why does Lisa stay in the house?
It's a compliment, really, isn't it? If you think about it, they're so intrigued by what you do, Lisa.
Do you know? I completely believe that. I think when people are interested in what you do, you're making a statement. It's time to worry. It's when nobody's interested.
Denzel Washington, the actor, said a famous thing. I heard it on TikTok the other week, and it's along the lines of like you know if you're doing well because the devil comes knocking. So when people start criticizing or kind of singling you out, you must be doing something right. If no one bothers with you, then obviously you're probably not doing what you need to do.
It's true. You can laugh at it as well. You could make up all sorts of stories, couldn't you? Doing witchcraft or something. You see, I think that you're right about this thing about people and being vindictive. From my little experience of life, when people become vindictive, they're either frightened of you or they're jealous of you. There's no other reason, because if you're not frightened of somebody, you're indifferent to them. They can do what they like. And if you have no envy, you have no interest. You can do as you like. Yeah. And you see, it's when somebody is hurt by another person, both people are part of the deal, aren't they, Dee?
Yeah, absolutely.
It isn't, but we've now got this vindictive state of social media consequence where total strangers will look at what somebody said and they'll make their mind up that they don't like the person, and out comes the venom. They must get some reward from doing it, Dee.
There's obviously, like I was carrying a lot of weight before I was ill. I've lost 10 stone, as you know. But I was getting a lot of abuse. I never react because I always think, well, crack on with it. But one thing I did do, I was getting a lot of abuse from one person in particular, and obviously I have a few resources, so I discovered who it was. My friend managed to trace his IP address, so he was very foolishly left it there. So anyway, transpired it was a 75-year-old man that lived in Sussex. So what I did, I got his photo, screenshotted it, put it on my social media. So I ever wonder about those people, the ones that sit at 3 o'clock in the morning in their pants with self-loathing. And I put this post on, and about a week later, I got an email from somebody saying, "Oh, that's my dad." I was like, "Oh, is it? Okay." And he's like, "Oh, well, the whole village has seen it, and he's very, very embarrassed. I went, oh, and he's like, would you take it off? I went, no. He says, he's going to be a media star now. I says, you want to see what I've got planned next? And of course I took it down, but I said, just give your dad a bit of advice. I'll have some respect because he's elderly. There's a living, breathing person right at the end of that keyboard, and because I choose to put myself on TV, it's not a warrant for you to verbally abuse me, and I've never really felt the need to react to anybody else. But I think a lot of it is self-loathing. They look at you. I mean, you've had abuse, I'm sure you don't mind me saying, from people. It's jealousy. It's the fact that they want to do what you're doing or do something similar. But to be quite blunt, I mean, I'm getting quite blunt at my old age now. They haven't got the wherewithal, or a word beginning with B, to actually get off and get up and do it and take the risk. I think that comes down to a lot of it, is the fact that they don't like you because you're successful. Well, I'm quite happy for someone to spend 25 years doing what I've done. I mean, I'm not anywhere near where I want to be, but it's took me 25 years to get to this level.
I accept that wholeheartedly. I wrote an article some time ago, and it was very well received, called Rites of Passage, where people think they want to jump on board or something and automatically become famous, or they think that they can become qualified in something, then automatically become successful. But it's like Kirsty, in fact, Kirsty, I go 100% on that statement. I also think the reward is attention as well. Drama. They like a bit of drama, open the curtains. But he got an example. Kirsty this week made this fantastic statement that she's been trading with Ethically Gifted for 15 years. Nothing that I've got this statement, Liz likes it and uses it very often, and success only comes before work in one place, and that's the dictionary. And I think, you've got to be dedicated. You and I were saying, 20 plus years later, we're still hammering away doing the same things. Hiya, Nikki. How are you? Great, lovely lady. Fantastic.
I think Kirsty's right about the attention thing, because when you don't give them attention, I mean, I've got private clients at the moment about this, something going on and with somebody, and when you don't give them the attention, when you interrupt the pattern, you suck the oxygen, you take the oxygen away from them. It's like putting a candle and then you put the thing on, and it'll only burn as much as there's oxygen. You know what I mean? So if you don't, what's the word, acquiesce, if you don't give in to these people, you effectively take their oxygen away. But if you get into a communicational loop with them, like, well, why are you doing this to me? Why are you picking on me? They love it. Kirsty's quite right. It's about me. And when you don't respond, I mean, I drove somebody crazy at one of these trolls because they could, no matter what they said, some really vile stuff. I just let them carry on. In the end, they burnt themselves out. They just give up.
I think that a lot of, Stuart's right. It takes time to learn a trade. It's not done overnight. It's something we put on our heart.
Stuart's been around for decades. Do you know what I mean? He's what he does, and he's very well known and respected because he's been there for a long time. And
keyboard warriors, I've seen some spiteful comments made, and I think it's shameful. Don't like something, scroll on by. I think Kirsty's right. Attention is probably what these keyboard vipers crave. You're absolutely right, Liz. But where I can remember you and I were sitting in the lovely cafe at the Contemporary when you were coming under some particular flack some years ago. And I don't know whether I can remember. I said to you, it's because you started to be on television, Darren.
Yeah.
And I'm convinced of it. I think those who were envious of what you were doing, I think when you started to go on to Breakfast TV and other national programs and, be with Bob Moorman and Slula and all of this type of thing, I think it made their blood boil. Yeah. Because in their mind, they were so convinced that you weren't going to go anywhere with what you were doing, that you were, and people were interested. And I'm absolutely convinced that it really made them seethe.
I think it goes back to my first book, Ian, Project Jamjaw, that a lot of people bought. And the analogy of that book, people that are not aware of it, is I say, if we get a glass and we put fleas in the glass and put the lid on, the fleas will jump and jump and jump until at a certain point they won't take that action again because they get an experience. They hit the lid, it's painful, so they give up. Whereas if you then take the lid off after about 60 days, there's only 3% of the fleas will jump out and keep the belief system that freedom's possible. The rest will die in the jar. And I think there's certain factions within society that are the same vein. Do you know what I mean? Because they've tried things that haven't worked, they displace that onto other people that do appear to be successful. And there's only probably you that know Ian, like the ups and downs, that the trials I've had. We've all had. I'm not putting myself out there as being special, but for every time I've been on telly, I've been booked 10 times, and not because something I've done. It's the nature of media.
Yeah.
They might say to you, "You've been with me countless times to London." They might say, "Right, Ian, can we have you on 7 o'clock in the morning in Manchester? Be up to be on BBC Breakfast." And then because something happens overnight, they'll say, "Oh, sorry, we've dropped that item now." So that's why I don't ever really put anything in advance on social media. If you notice, any of the posts that I put on are all retrospective once I've done them, because I've learned, through experience, that it's a very fickle business. You know what I mean?
I think it's fascinating. I can remember when we went down to, I think was it Channel 4 or something, on Westminster Bridge to their offices, and I can remember when we walked in there.
Yeah.
I couldn't get my head around how many people were collecting news in the news desk. There must have been 45 people with computer screens in them all. It was mad, wasn't it? Mind you, the best thing for me, best thing for me there was when you went off to do your interview or whatever you did, and the researcher came to me and said, "Oh, could you get anything?" I said, "Do you do wine or something?" She said, "Champagne, anything you like." That's a bit dangerous saying that to me. So she got me a lovely beer, and then she came back and said, "You want another one?" I did. It was brilliant. I had a great day.
When I did the one show, Ian, they've got a big fridge in the green room at the one show, and you'd have loved it because it was just full of like pop, Coke, water, juice, beer, sweet, everything. It's just all free. So I should have told you with me on that one.
Yeah, I'll just go back to a question. I think Lisa would be quite interested with this. So, how did you lose the 10 stone? It wasn't intentional.
I was actually very ill. I got a blood disorder, and I was been living in Cornwall, and I felt, if I'm honest with you, Lisa, probably it's a male thing, isn't it? Like, I felt crap, and I was going, "Nah, I'm all right. I'll suck it up." Bloke guys are like. So in the end, like, it made me go to the doctor. So I ended up in the hospital in Truro for quite a number of weeks. So people are saying, "Oh, well done, Dazza, you've done it." And I'm like, "Well, thank you." But yeah.
So a question comes to me, because I will say it, you were actually given only a few hours to survive, weren't you? What went through your mind when that moment they said, you could be on your way out? What did you think? What went in your mind?
Basically, they thought I had leukemia, right? Because all the things that were happening. Basically, I don't mind sharing it. It's not. My blood count was 0 for hemoglobin for oxygen. So you're supposed to have 140 to 160 on a blood test, and I was unrecorded. So I did a blood test on the Tuesday morning. And then the doctors come back on the Friday, and we'll get the result. Well, by Tuesday afternoon, they'd gone to Truro. They tested them, but I got a phone call saying, "You better get yourself down here now, within the hour. You're in on the brink of full organ failure," because they thought I had leukemia. But thank Christ, like, I didn't. And but I had this, and I'm still under treatment for this other thing. But I'm a world away from where I was. But yeah, basically one of the things that happened was I couldn't eat. So I just lived on basically water and supplements. But yeah, I couldn't believe it. I dropped. It was actually 10.5 stone I lost.
So the question I'll ask you, do you think that was the most frightening moment you've ever experienced, when they told you that, your life was really on the line?
Yeah. Yeah, because I'm a very resilient person like you. I mean, I've been chased with swords and people chasing me with trying to stab me in the police.
I'm not surprised.
I've got that sort of face. You wind people up. But yeah, on the serious note, it was scary, because, like I say, as soon as I got there, I had like 3 units of blood, and as it goes on, and so ended up. went through all the way through COVID and through lockdown, spent 4 days in Truro Hospital, and ended up getting point isolation, getting COVID.
So, it was the So it was the Pixies, Darren.
It was the Pixies.
I didn't want you there.
Thanks,
that's another story, isn't it? So let's get press on a bit, because it's a great. If anybody's got a question they want to ask Darren, please fire. Yeah, ask some questions. So that's the story about Darren. That's how it wasn't the way you wanted to lose weight, but I've noticed you have taken advantage of it.
Oh God, yeah. I mean, I needed to drop it. I mean, I obviously had cancer a few years back as well. That didn't help.
Yeah, I can remember.
Lots of weight on. So yeah, it's been interesting for a few years, and obviously put weight on the steroids. So I think it was a combination of. And again, I'm quite open and honest about it. I lost my parents. I'd had some bad times with depression of my parents, and got comfort out, and then got ill, and so I think it was a consequence. I mean, I was I had quite a lot of weight, carrying a lot of weight, so I think I still want to drop a bit more, but I'm totally different person, really.
Liz says, if a person is being nasty, spiteful, hateful by words or actions towards another, the person they're targeting is actually controlling the perpetrator. I completely and absolutely agree 100%. I've always used that as if somebody's angry about you, if somebody hates you, you're in control of them, not the other way round. But I will say this about Liz: I've never known anybody in my life who's able to just say, "Well, that's the way it is." And
yeah, she does.
Liz, she does. She's got this amazing thing.
Well, we call it a frame. So get a quick plug-in. You can read all about that in the book.
Interesting.
So I talk about narcissism and controlling behaviours and things like that in the book.
Stuart says it's a wake-up call, but it's done you good and maybe a new lease of life to prove them wrong.
You're absolutely right, Stuart. You're absolutely right.
I love being bigger. I feel like a goddess. You are a goddess to me, Lisa. You really are.
End of the day, it's about you. You're right. It's about you. If you're happy, stuff everybody else. Do you know what I mean? They like you for you, or quite frankly, they can bugger off. Do you know what I mean? I think, to me, I mean, don't get me wrong. I love what we're doing here and social media, but I hate it. I hate the whole the way things are now with technology, and nobody talks to each other. We do, obviously, a lot in this community, but the world's just gone crazy. I mean, even today, I tried to ring a few places up, chat bots, press this, push for. It's having grew up in the 80s, it's just frustrating, isn't it?
I think so. I've been listening to Patti Smith's Just Kids, and I'm absolutely amazed at the dedication that woman had to her art, and the suffering and the difficulties that she had before she became famous, and her friendship with Robert Mapplethorpe was amazing, and he was the same, penniless. They lived in almost abject squalor, etc., and they both went on become incredibly wealthy and very, very famous. Robert Mapplethorpe, obviously, with his photography, but I mean, we won't go too far with Robert Mapplethorpe. I don't like his work. I think the quality of his work's amazing, but I think he was a sensationalist photographer, and I think that he became very famous because of the content of his work being so borderline. On numerous occasions, he was censored very, very strongly for his work, and I think a lot of it was to do with the controversy that surrounded his work. But Patti Smith, amazing, absolutely fantastic. What a fantastic lady, and still great. I tell you, she came up with a great statement just recently, because people think that she's a very active feminist, and she shoots people down very quickly, because a person said, "Well, are you a feminist?" And she said, "I have a son." That's all she said. I have a son, and everything's equal to me. But that isn't any comment on that. And Liz says, and that means you're controlling them all, Lisa. You being you has an effect and never stop being Lisa. I think people become. Do you think people jealousy rules with vindictiveness?
I think it's definitely motivational factor. I mean, what we say is that you can't affect somebody else directly. So if someone says, "Oh, I want you to do that," what tends to happen is they say that you can affect them indirectly. So what I mean by that is really that. Oh, sorry, one sec. It's my Sky News alert. Something's happened. Certainly, in terms of someone being controlling, I always use the analogy of if you walk into a room, you press the light switch, you have an expectancy the light's going to come on. Right, and if you do that enough times, if you came in and did it and it didn't come on, you go, oh, what we call interrupts the pattern. So this is the thing about jealous people, because they know what buttons to push, whether it's your partner or your boss or somebody else that you kind of interact with regularly. When you don't, as difficult as it is, if you don't respond in the same way that you used to, it interrupts their pattern, and that's the way. That's the beginning of. And Liz is quite right. Do you know what I mean? Because if you don't respond in the same old way that people expect, and it sucks the oxygen out of them. So it is literally about jealousy. It's about assertion of power, control. I personally feel it's not the schoolyard bully. It all comes back onto them, really. They're projecting their angst, their self-loathing, because they can't really beat themselves up, metaphorically. They displace it onto another figure. And that's where we get stalking from, things like that.
I won't go into the details, the ins and outs of it, but a complete stranger recently, can you remember, called me as thick as mince? But the difficulty for him was that quite a number of people, I was surprised how many people, I made it, I put it up on my Facebook wall and I said, this guy, and I put his name and everything, has called me thick as mince, blah, 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 blah. And I think I was just staggered by the amount of people who came to my support. And he pretty quickly removed it all. But, to make a statement, if you've got a lot of allies who come to support you, you very quickly diminish these people, because they're not, it's not a one-to-one basis. All of a sudden, there's a lot of people throwing back on it. At least he says, indifference is very powerful. I think it is, I think being indifferent to things.
I mean, we always say the best way to win a game is not to play. You know what I mean? Like in terms of like if anyone's experienced, again, narcissism is a very topical word now. A lot of people kind of diagnose people all the time. But, if someone's got a personality disorder or is in the midst of someone controlling, when they make a statement, it's almost like them serving a ball. Now, when you're in the communication loop, you fire it back and say, oh, what have I done? And they fire something back and it goes on and on and on. Whereas if you say, right, I'm not going to reply, I'm not going to serve the ball back to them, that's the beginnings of crushing their kind of power. It's like, for those of old enough that remember Freddy Krueger back in the day, he only had power in that film in people's dreams because people feared him. When people did, the minute the protagonist in the film, the girl, didn't have any fear anymore, he lost his weakness. And that's what it's all about with people that are jealous or trolls. It's about asserting their power. It's about making this is what gets my back up. It's one of my core values. And that's why I became a police officer. Is one entity or one person or one organization trying to diminish or disempower somebody else. I hate it. And I dealt with a very nasty domestic 20 years ago where one guy beat the crap out of his missus and we sat in custody. And he says, anyway, what made you join the police? And I thought about it for a second and I leaned into him and I said, you did. Your sort of person that's a bully.
Yeah. So we're going to run on a little bit of promotional work in a moment, Dee. You can meet Darren at the original Mansfield Mind, Body and Spirit show, April 11 and 12, John Fretwell Complex, Sookholm Road, Mansfield, Notts, NG 198LL. It is truly looking to be a wonderful show. 54 people standing, which is very strong for the event. Very many new and fresh faces. We've got exhibitors coming down from Newcastle upon Tyne. Absolutely brilliant. There's a very, very good blend of retailers, readers, spiritual counselors, and a very hefty presence of holistic and alternative therapies, everything from Reiki, we've got massage, we've got chiropractor, we've got a lot of phenomenal people there. It's a cracking day and a brilliant weekend. 30 talks and presentations. Miller with his drumming starting and finishing the show in room 1. A lot of people showing a great deal of interest in that. Definitely brings people on board. And of course, we've got Mr. Darren Stanton talking on the Saturday and the Sunday. As I've already said, you very approachable. Dee has great, loves talking to people. That chair, two chairs in front of him, and he can sit there all day and he'll talk. Now, Darren, you have got, let me just see the comments that we've got through. Only a few days away, the original Mansfield Mind, Body and Spirit show. Kirsty is very excited. So many people have put so much into promoting this show. It's been absolutely brilliant. And I think that the amount of support we've had across the spectrum of people standing is great. I've just recently started to push quite heavily on TikTok and other social media streams, and that actually has got a lot of people interested. I know full well that it is a worldwide presence, and not everybody who are looking and saying they're interested in the show are going to appear, but it's absolutely great. This just goes on here: sound therapy, light therapy, reflexology, acupuncture massage, hand and arm massage, integral eye movement therapy, Reiki, energy healing. You know, that is an awful lot of alternative healers in one building, and it's absolutely great. And Lisa's right. You know, Sammy's the most amazing person I've ever met. I'm so blessed to have him in my life. And, you know, fantastic. If you've got one person or a group of people who are allies, you cannot go wrong. It's inner strength. Dee, so we've got a show running, but also you've got a show running. Let's just have a little bit of a look-see at what it's all about. Are we ready to roll?
Go for it.
So, Mr. Stanton, that's an absolutely excellent show, really. I was terrified looking at it, and I'm a guy who really reads a lot of Joe Nesbo, and some of his stuff is a bit dark. What's it all about, Dee?
So obviously, I've done quite a lot of crime documentaries and stuff like that. I'm with my police and my background in the police. A lot of people, kind of love this stuff. Thank you, Liz. So yeah, on the 13th of June, I've got my friend Michael Myers with me today, but. So essentially, it's inside the mind of a psychopath. It's happening at the Holiday Inn, which is where I'm at the moment in Nottingham, Castle Marina. I was going to use the galleries, but because it's a Saturday night, I didn't want a load of rowdy, drunken people outside, and that's just my guests. No, because I didn't want a lot of drunken people, and also parking's expensive and it's a nightmare. Whereas here, it's free parking, nice bar, nice people. So it's going to be basically like the theatre. You'll come along, you can get yourself a drink. They'll be in 2 parts, mid-interval, and it's interactive. So it's not just me sat at the front talking. It'd be quite interactive, and it's all about the psychology of psychopaths. And also, not all psychopaths are serial killers. So not all psychopaths are sort of like straight out of Halloween. We may have met a psychopath, or we may know a psychopath. A psychopath is somebody that lacks empathy. Could be a boss, could be your partner in the past, it could be anybody else. So it's all about teaching you the sign of how people manipulate, kind of like could become controlling. And lots of the famous serial killers used a lot of what I call the dark art psychology, which is in conjunction with my book. So it's a great night, to be honest with you. It's going to be, a really good night. It's 25 quid a ticket. If you go onto Eventbrite, either go onto the main website and put my name in, or just Google Darren Stanton psychopath, which is what most people think anyway. And you can put your tickets on there. They're going quite well. So yes, a Saturday evening, great night out. Ian's going to be there, and Liz, who's doing some. I roped him in doing some filming for me. And it's a chance for a lot of like-minded people, to come along, have a great night out, because I think that's what's lacking. You know what I mean? It's a night away from this. Interact, have a good laugh, have a few scares, and learn some great material.
You know where we work, and there's a couple of quite high council who come into the cafe, and one of them, I won't mention his name. He actually has defended quite a few murderers.
Yeah.
And I said to him, I said, is there a common thread between the people you defend? And he said, no. He said they can be anybody from a meek and mild lady who has just had enough of her husband shouting at them, to an all-out aggressive guy who is just destined to commit the ultimate crime no matter what. So I said to him, I said, when you first interview them, what are they like? And he said something. He said, the first thing that I say to them is, be clear that whatever happens over the next 2 weeks are the most important parts of your life. Whatever happens over the next 2 weeks are the foundation of where you're going, because you are going to, if you are found guilty, you are going to spend a lot of time in prison. And when you come out of prison, you will never be released from your license. You will always have to have a probation officer, and you'll be able to see them very regularly to keep their eye on what's going on. But he said that the majority of them, 90% of them, are absolutely, completely in a state of vagueness and blankness. They can't get together that they are going to be incarcerated for a very, very long time. He said, and particularly the murderers who commit the crime on a spontaneous act, a domestic argument that goes wrong, a argument on a road rage that goes wrong. He said, 1 minute they are thinking the day's going to be nice and bright, and they're going to go home, have a pint of beer in the pub, and then go back to their wives and family, and they're going to go on their holiday. And then literally within a split second, all of that has come to an end. How do you think they cope with it?
There's different degrees of psychopathy. I mean, obviously not everyone that finds themselves being charged with murder is a psychopath. There's lots of things that happen the spur of the moment, like you say. I mean, the majority of things, people that commit murder, they're known to the victim. This is the thing about serial killers, that the thing why it perplexes police is because there's no lines of inquiry, what we call lines of inquiry. So majority, for example, when someone goes missing, the immediate suspects are the immediate family, because 99% of serious offences or a murder is committed by somebody that the victim knew. But people that are, and again, I'll stress the show's not just about serial killers. It's really teaching people how to spot the signs of psychopathy, because psychopaths, they lack emotion. So they say that Donald Trump's a psychopath, although we both like him really. Is a psychopath because psychopathy can actually, in normal life, doesn't mean they kill people. It means they lack empathy, but if they want something, they'll go all out to get it. So sometimes it sounds crazy, but there is this positive side to being a little bit psychopathic. It just means that you're very, very driven. So the night really is a combination of doing interactive demonstrations with some of the audience, obviously showing you some police interview tapes, breaking things down. So really, by the time you walk out, you'll have, hopefully been entertained, but also learn some great new skills.
Mm. Do you think that, when somebody is truly angry with another person within a situation, is there a period of time when they're at their most dangerous where they could actually go over the top and really cause some havoc? Is there a period of time when they're really angry, and is there a period of time when it starts to dissipate, or does it?
Yeah, I mean, basically, if we're talking about pathological sort of killers and stuff, it's the time when they're very stoic, very quiet. I mean, Ted Bundy was a famous serial killer in America. Battle cover on the night. He was a lawyer. He was just about. I think he graduated or was going to be a lawyer. And he was so nice to what he used to do is wear a false cast on his arm, and he had like a box, and he'd like an empty box, but he'd struggle, and he'd wait for like young students to see him, and they'd go, "Oh, can I come and help you?" Cruel, really, but once they were out of sight, he used to just basically knock them out, and obviously do what he did, and they ended up dead. But when he was being sentenced to death by the judge said, "It's a great shame because you're very eloquent in the way that you speak. You're very knowledgeable, and I would have loved to have had you as a lawyer in my court."
Wow.
So a lot of them are very affable. So to answer your question, I'm not talking about heat of the moment stuff, but the stuff that are people. I've got personality disorders or pathological. It's kind of like Hannibal Lecter. They're very almost like a lizard on a rock. They're very still and calm and stoic. It's the people when they say the quiet one's the worst, that's actually right. It's not the people that rant and rave, it's the ones that are quiet that you have to kind of be more observant of.
Can people be pathological business people where they just absolutely?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, again, they say Trump's like that. So anyone that could potentially, like, if maybe 4 people are in the way of what they want, they'd sack them if they could, like that, and not lose a moment's sleep. Whereas most people, if they put somebody out of work, then maybe not sleep that well. But psychopaths, the difference, the 2 distinctions, you've got what's called sociopathy, so a sociopath and a psychopath. A sociopath is aware of what they're doing, so they have a conscious awareness of what they're doing. They still can do kind of cruelish things, but it's the awareness. Whereas psychopathy, they don't tend to really. It's almost like a shark. They're feeding this kind of visceral need, like narcissism. They don't really think about it. They're devoid. It's either genetically predisposed or socialized, that the part of the brain that deals with emotion is not developed at the same or correct rate. So therefore, what would make, sometimes, we've all said things and we thought, oh, I wish I hadn't said that. Whereas they wouldn't even think about that. They'd just be good of it.
I mean, I'm not going to go totally into the ins and outs of President Trump, but you read a lot of articles, as you do in across the board in the media, particularly European media, talking about him being some form of lunatic who changes his mind, makes statements, then goes back on them, then makes other statements, then blows hot and cold. But actually, that technique that he uses actually is a very powerful negotiation technique taken to the end, to the nth. And he wrote a book, didn't he, called How to Make a Deal? And I think it's like chapter 6. What he's actually just done is down to, hard, really hard, big negotiation where you leave the opposition, you leave them in a state of confusion, and in the end they capitulate and you get the deal you want. And it's quite a well-known technique. And I think if you look really very carefully, there's some 1 or 2 really, truly well-known people who get away with that. Actually, one of the guys who used to use that technique a lot, was Freddie Laker. Very interesting. Anyway, we'll go off that subject. So there are all sorts of different pathological diversions, and so business, if you like. How would it advantage the sportsman? Do you think there are pathological sports people who just
absolutely, yeah. Again, some of the most driven people, I'm sure if they were tested, they would display, sort of psychopathic character traits. So it's single-mindedness, it's a lack of empathy. So again, this is what we explore in the evening. It's not everyone's nasty. There's some positive traits to being like that. Just being somebody can be extremely determined and achieve great things. So there's people in history, you know, that have achieved some miraculous things because of the fact that they've got these particular traits.
Do you think that they are insular in their thinking? Do you think they're able to ignore their environment and the influence of their environment? Because I think on the some of the very wealthy people that I've met over the years, they've actually been completely and utterly dedicated almost to obsession about and I'm not just talking about financial success, I'm talking about all sorts of success. They're absolutely no interest whatsoever about what other people say or do, and they just keep going. And you sometimes think you'll never get away with that. You'll do it, and they do, don't they? It's amazing.
Yeah, I think for the people that have done sort of NLP and stuff like that, there's a thing called meta model, which basically means that people, if they've got a particular belief system, they'll either delete, generalize, or distort information that fits in with their belief system. So, for example, let's say you treat yourself to a new car, and the person that doesn't really like you that much, rather than saying, "Oh, Ian's worked hard, he's bought himself a new car," they'd say, "Oh, he must have rented it, or he must have leased it." So they'll they'll unconsciously delete or distort what they see. I think that's what tends to happen with a lot of these sorts of people. Millions of people in fear.
Yeah, I think you're right about that. I think that we don't have really an accurate compass, do we, of how people live these days. I can remember listening to somebody, so I bet Liz will remember this as well. There were some people at the market stall, quite young people, and they were paying for quite an amount. They were quite young, and they were paying for quite an amount of goods with a credit card. And Liz said, "Are you sure you're okay with buying this?" And that was Liz. That she was very, very conscious. She never wanted anybody to get themselves into financial difficulty over buying. Are you sure? And I can never forget this girl. And she said, "Debt and credit is a normal way of life. What's wrong with you?" You know, they absolutely accept that that's the way it is. It's amazing. I mean,
it's so easy now just to go dink with your phone, isn't it? Like it was when you used to swipe things. Now it's all on your phone or your watch. Whereas if you had to draw the money out and count out the fivers, you probably wouldn't buy it.
Yeah, it's true. Very true. We like it. We like a few fivers.
Yeah, cash is king.
It is. So look at this. 3 minutes to go, Darren. So let's just put some more advertisements on. So what time will people turn up? Is it 6:30 for 7? Have a drink in the bar with Darren?
Yeah.
Or
Turn up about 6:45. Get yourself a drink. Doors open at 7. Start at 7:30. There'll be an interval about 8:30 for 20 minutes, and then we'll carry on for the second half of the show. Finishes about 9:30, 9:45, something like that.
So you've got enough time to have an Indian meal on the way home.
Yeah, I mean, there's what restaurants here. You could get something here, you could get something on the way, and then you've got a full bar. It's not like the galleries where you've got to go out and go across the road and stuff and deal with all the melee.
In fairness, Darren, I think you've made the right choice. I think you're better off to be in the environment you're in. It's nice to have 30 or 40 people together and have a really, really nice.
Well, we're expecting about 80. Yeah, about 80 people. So.
Well, whatever, but it really is great. So there we are, Darren Stanton. Show date 13th of June. Tickets available. Eventbrite online. Search Psychopathy Darren Stanton, Psychopath Darren Stanton, and away you will go. Brilliant. We've had a lot of people on board, ins and outs today. Brilliant. Stuart, Lisa, Kirsty, thank you so much for all your contributions. We've got Nikki, wonderful, wonderful lady, absolutely fantastic. You'll be seeing her at the show. Brilliant, great stuff. Who have I forgot? Stuart. I'm going to miss people. I'm really sorry. Apologies. There's a lot of people here. Lisa, of course, and Kirsty, and everybody else who's been on. Thank you very, very much indeed. You watch again, and we always get some great amount. Darren, it's going to be absolutely great event this coming weekend. I have no doubt about it. And just to remind everybody, it is Liz and Events original Mansfield Mind, Body and Spirit show, 11 and 12 of April, this coming weekend, John Fretwell Complex, Suitcombe Row, Mansfield, Notts, NG19 8LL. You can get tons of information on lizinevents.org. A lot of people on there at the moment, and I'm very, very pleased about that. There's a lot of very much interest in what we're doing, and I really think you'll find that we keep pushing and pushing and pushing on social media streams, and we will be away. And Liz says, me, yeah.
I think the yes, that's in 10 to 4. Yeah, that's actually the first show that I got involved in. Well, obviously BSSK that used to be around, which you
yes.
And then obviously when this was at the Civic Centre, I started doing these shows sort of 2000. So it's 20, 25, 26 years ago.
Yeah, 30 years, Darren.
Yeah.
That show's been going 30 years. I mean, we were having this conversation, Liz and I are very proud. I mean, it's a strange thing, isn't it? We took over what was the remnants of BSSK.
Yeah.
And we've now taken over the original Mansfield Mind, Body and Spirit show. They're great things to have under your belt. They're great legacies to have as well.
Yeah.
They're absolutely wonderful. Liz, £5 admission daily, £8 for both days. So much to see, so much to do. Wonderful, wonderful show. I think that, you know, it's a great legacy, isn't it? Yeah, we meet at the Mansfield show. It's true.
Good to see you.
And I think that, to me, that show is absolutely fantastic. I will be relentless, everybody, in promoting all of our events this year. I have a great deal of media which is going to go out. Anybody who's watching this, who's standing at the show, you will not be able to run away from me this coming weekend. I'm filming a lot, I'm interviewing a lot, and every single piece of information, the media that I collect, will be used for us to promote future events. I am absolutely making sure that people realize wholeheartedly that Liz and I are going to strengthen the shows that we've got. We are going to consolidate the shows that we've got, and everybody who is standing as community members or exhibitors with us, we will give you the very, very best of promotion, superior to anything that you've ever seen. I truly, truly will be doing that. Make no mistake about it. We used to stand at the Mansfield show for several years, and we did. And Mansfield MBS was the very first MBS show I attended, and we're so glad that you're there. Lou's here, look. Lou's coming all the way down from Newcastle on Tyne. Thank you so much. Lou, fantastic. She was on Liz Events Live quite recently, and we've had phenomenal numbers on that. Quality over quantity. Cheeky. Say no more. Mr. Darren Stanton, thank you very, very,
You're welcome
very
as ever.
much.
Thank you very much for asking me.
Thank you to everybody who has been on board tonight. Thanks for your questions and your comments. I know that there'll be a lot of people who will be watching this over the week and in times to come. Please find the time to come to Nottingham and go to Darren's show. Darren Stanton, show date 13th of June. Eventbrite, search on life for psychopath Darren Stanton. All the information is there. He'll be talking about it at the show. One more banner before we go. Original Mansfield Mind, Body and Spirit show, 11 and 12 this weekend. John Fretwell Complex, Suitcombe Road. Unlimited parking, folks. Free parking, free talks. Only thing I'm afraid you have to do is make a contribution on the door for the show, and that'll be the way it goes. I think we've got one more comment we're going to go. Liz says, see you all soon. Thanks, everybody. Please do stay online. And at that, thank you very much. And it'll be thank you from Mr. Stanton.
See you later. See you on Saturday.
See you all. Thank you very, very much indeed. Thank you all very, very much. And thank you for all the support. Keep on sharing our work. God bless you all. And I'll now